Most people don't fail because they can't succeed. They fail because of the small choices they ignore every day. Most people believe failure is caused by circumstances, bad luck, poor timing, a lack of opportunity, or unfair conditions. And while circumstances play a role, they are almost never the true reason people fail. Failure is more often than not the result of choices. Day by day, decision by decision, people either build their future or tear it down. Think about it. Two people can grow up in the same neighborhood, face the same challenges, attend the same schools, and yet one rises to success while the other struggles endlessly. What makes the difference? Not the circumstances. They were nearly identical. The difference was in the choices each person made. One chose discipline, learning, and perseverance. The other chose procrastination, excuses, and the comfort of the familiar. This is why blaming circumstances is so dangerous. The moment you point to the economy, your family, your boss, or society as the reason for your lack of success, you hand over your power. You say, in effect, my life is controlled by things outside of me. And when you believe that, failure becomes inevitable. On the other hand, the moment you accept that your choices create your results, you reclaim power. Suddenly, your future is in your hands, not someone else's. Of course, life throws obstacles at everyone. Some people face tougher challenges than others, that is undeniable. But history is filled with examples of people who overcame unimaginable odds, not because circumstances were kind, but because their choices were strong. They chose persistence when quitting was easier. They chose learning when ignorance was more comfortable. They chose responsibility when excuses were available. Failure, then, is not a single event. It is the accumulation of poor choices, small decisions made daily that slowly erode potential. Choosing not to save, not to study, not to take action, not to risk, not to grow. These choices compound just as success compounds. By the time failure becomes visible to the world, the groundwork has been laid through years of decisions made in private. If you want to avoid failure, stop looking outward for the reason and start looking inward. Ask yourself, what choices am I making today that move me closer to success, and what choices are quietly leading me toward failure? Because in the end, circumstances don't decide. Failure rarely shows up overnight. It sneaks in quietly through small neglects, the little things we think don't matter. It's skipping the book because you're tired. It's ignoring the workout because you'll get to it tomorrow. It's spending a little more than you earn just this once, thinking it won't hurt. But here's the truth. Life doesn't punish you for one act of neglect. It punishes you for the accumulation of neglect over time. Think of it like a garden. If you fail to water it for a day, nothing seems wrong. Miss another day, still no big change. But neglect it long enough and weeds take over, the soil dries out and the plants wither. The same principle applies to your life. Small neglects, undone tasks, avoided responsibilities, missed opportunities build up until suddenly you're standing in the middle of a life overrun by weeds. The challenge with small neglects is how deceptively harmless they feel in the moment. Nobody gains 50 pounds by skipping one workout. Nobody goes bankrupt from buying one coffee they can't afford. Nobody ruins a relationship by ignoring one meaningful conversation. But repeated neglect, day after day, week after week, creates momentum in the wrong direction. Just as small disciplines compound into success, small neglects compound into failure. It's easier to see this in hindsight. People look back at a failed business and realize it wasn't one catastrophic event that killed it. It was months of ignoring the books, not listening to customers, not adapting to change. People look back at broken health and see it wasn't one bad meal, but years of bad habits. Failure doesn't ambush you, it accumulates, and here's the real danger. Neglect feeds itself. The more you neglect, the easier it becomes to keep neglecting. Miss one workout, and the second one is easier to skip. Put off one phone call, and the pile grows until it feels impossible. Neglect creates inertia, the weight of inaction that keeps you stuck. But here's the good news, the principle works in reverse. Just as neglect compounds into failure, discipline compounds into success. One small act of responsibility today weakens the habit of neglect. One small choice to act builds momentum in the right direction. You don't have to turn everything around overnight. You only have to stop ignoring the small things that matter. Because in life, failure is nothing more than neglect multiplied over time. If there's one habit that quietly steals more potential than any other, it's the habit of making excuses. Excuses are dangerous because they feel comfortable. They sound reasonable, they let us off the hook in the moment, but what they really do is chain us to mediocrity. Excuses destroy more dreams than failure ever will, because failure at least comes with a lesson. Excuses come with nothing but regret. Think about it. When you fail at something, you have evidence, feedback, and experience to grow from. You can adjust, improve, and try again. Failure, in that sense, can be a stepping stone. But when you make excuses, you never even begin the journey. You stop before you start. You tell yourself the story that protects your pride but robs your future. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't know the right people. These are not reasons. They're excuses disguised as reasons. Excuses are seductive because they sound logical. They let you believe you're being realistic, but what they really do is blind you to possibility. For every excuse you give, there is someone out there with the same limitation who went ahead anyway and succeeded. History is full of men and women who lacked resources, connections, or education, yet built extraordinary lives. The difference, they chose responsibility over excuses. The real danger of excuses is how they shape identity. Every time you make one, you train your mind to see yourself as powerless. You reinforce the belief that your life is controlled by external forces. Over time, that mindset becomes permanent and you stop reaching altogether. Failure can be temporary, but excuses can become a lifelong condition. And let's be honest, most excuses are just fear in disguise. Fear of failing, fear of rejection, fear of hard work, fear of change. Instead of admitting fear, we wrap it in an excuse that sounds safer. But in doing so, we let fear dictate the terms of our life. And a life ruled by fear can never be a life of success. The way forward is simple. Trade excuses for ownership. When you stop explaining why you can't and start asking how you can, doors begin to open. Excuses keep doors locked. Ownership finds the key. Remember this. Failure is not final, but excuses are fatal. You can recover from failure. You cannot recover from the dreams you never even dared to chase. Discipline may feel like a burden in the short term, but its absence always creates a heavier burden later, the burden of regret. You can choose the pain of discipline today or the pain of regret tomorrow, but make no mistake, one of them will be waiting. And the pain of discipline is always lighter than the crushing weight of regret. Think about health, the discipline of daily exercise, of eating wisely, of resting properly. It requires effort, no doubt. But what happens when those disciplines are neglected? Years later, the regret shows up in the form of low energy, poor health, or even illness that could have been prevented. The regret says, if only I had been more consistent. Discipline would have required sweat for an hour. Regret demands suffering for years. The same is true with money. The discipline of saving, budgeting, and investing may feel restrictive in the moment, but the absence of those disciplines creates lifelong regret. Regret that says, I wish I had started earlier. I wish I had been wiser. I wish I had prepared. A few small financial disciplines, repeated consistently, could have built freedom. Without them, regret becomes the final balance. Even in relationships, discipline matters. The discipline to listen, to speak with kindness, to give attention. These are small acts that build trust and intimacy. Ignore them, and years later, regret creeps in. Families drift apart, friendships dissolve, marriages weaken, not because of one catastrophic event, but because discipline was absent. Regret whispers, if only I had tried harder, loved better, given more. Discipline is not punishment, it is preparation. It creates the future you want before it arrives. When you live with discipline, you pay a small price daily, but you buy a life with fewer regrets. When you avoid discipline, you avoid a small price today only to pay a massive one tomorrow. The harsh reality is that life doesn't let you skip the cost. You either pay with discipline or you pay with regret. But while discipline gives you something back, strength, confidence, results, regret gives you nothing but sorrow. So the question is never whether life will demand effort from you. The question is whether you will choose effort in advance through discipline or effort in hindsight through regret. Because one path builds success, and the other path builds a lifetime of if-onlys. If there's a silent killer of success, it's comfort. Comfort feels safe, it feels easy, it feels pleasant, but it is the very place where growth goes to die. The truth is, you cannot grow and stay comfortable at the same time. Every leap forward in life requires stepping outside of what is familiar, risking discomfort, and challenging yourself to stretch. Failure often hides behind comfort. People don't fail because they lack talent or opportunity. They fail because they settle. They settle for a job that pays the bills but doesn't stretch their potential. They settle for routines that feel easy but produce no progress. They settle for habits that maintain the status quo instead of building a better future. Comfort becomes a quiet trap, and the longer you stay in it, the harder it becomes to leave. Think about any area of growth. Building strength requires discomfort in the gym. Expanding knowledge requires the discomfort of study and humility. Growing a business requires the discomfort of risk, rejection, and uncertainty. Even building deeper relationships requires the discomfort of vulnerability. Growth is always uncomfortable because it demands that you leave behind the version of yourself that no longer serves you. The challenge is that comfort disguises itself as happiness. It whispers, "Why push yourself? You're fine where you are." And yes, for a while, comfort feels good, but over time, that good feeling turns stale. Dreams fade, opportunities pass, potential shrinks. Comfort that once felt like relief begins to feel like regret. On the other hand, those who embrace discomfort find freedom. They discover that what once felt difficult becomes normal, even easy, through repetition. The tough workout becomes routine, the awkward first conversation becomes a lifelong friendship, the scary business risk becomes the foundation of financial freedom. By leaning into discomfort, you expand the limits of what you're capable of, and with every expansion, your life grows richer. The truth is, growth and comfort are enemies. You must choose one or the other. Stay in comfort, and you guarantee stagnation. Step into discomfort, and you guarantee growth. That's why the people who achieve greatness are not the ones who avoided fear, risk, or difficulty, but the ones who walked straight into it and kept going. So if you want to avoid failure, don't settle for what's easy. Seek what challenges you, because your future self is waiting not in the comfort of today, but in the discomfort of growth. Failure is not some mystery hiding in the shadows. It is not decided by luck, fate, or circumstance. It is built day by day through choices, through neglects, through excuses, through the absence of discipline, and through the love of comfort. These are the real reasons people fail, not because life is unfair, but because they fail to demand more of themselves. The lesson is clear. If you want to avoid failure, stop looking outward for excuses and start looking inward for responsibility. Take ownership of your choices. Pay attention to the small things before they grow into big problems. Trade excuses for action. Choose discipline now so regret doesn't haunt you later. And above all, step out of comfort into challenge, because that's where your growth and your success will be found. Failure is not inevitable. It's preventable, and the power to prevent it lies in the daily decisions you make. Success is simply the reward of responsibility, discipline, and growth repeated over time. Failure is the price of neglect, excuses, and comfort. Choice every single day is yours.